How do we grow this influence of black leaders, men and women, that can represent our industry inside the ANC, inside the policy-making structures?
Get to grips with the digital environment, put together best practices, what works and what doesn't, very importantly.
In the project that we're doing in Chaplat, we've created a linking bridge between those two little areas there. So it becomes a matter of just 10 minutes walk from one side to the other.
So my message to our CEOs and those chief investment officers is, where at the end of the day do you want to see your role?
So by treating all of our water back to a stage where we can bring it back into the process, we're in effect saving around about 35% of our water usage on site.
Hey guys, welcome to another show of Green and Youth and the Green Economy. My name is Nolwazi Mbhele, and today we're going to be talking about urban farming. I don't know if you remember last week when we had a conversation about environmental activism with Julie Goodness. So today we're going to be talking to Gugulethu Urban Farming Initiative with Busi Selani. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm awesome. And yourself?
I'm great, thank you. I really hope you're going to have a good day today.
Let's hope.
All right. So you are part of the Gugulethu Urban Farming Initiative. May you please just take us through that? What is it? What do you guys do? And how did it start?
Well, Gugulethu Urban Farming Initiative is an entity that has recently started with an aim to organize farmers within the greater part of Gugulethu in Cape Town during the start of COVID. As we all know, all of the different industries had been affected immensely with the pandemic. But for us, it was kind of like a stepping stone or an added benefit in towards driving an initiative where we can well organize ourselves between beginners, between veterans, and everyone that's been in the industry or agricultural industry for the longest of time. Now, joining together, we were able to speak to a lady called Pamela Silwana, who's heading or spearheading Gugulethu Seaboard Can, which is that is an entity that earmarks or helps sustain all of the community kitchens within Gugulethu, right? From there on, Vuyani Kamata sought to actually approach Pamela to say, look, we are a couple of farmers. There's new, there's old farmers. We would like to mimic the same model as what Gugulethu Seaboard Can has actually embarked upon, which means now obviously trying to organize ourselves to enable us to continuously being self-sustainable. And if there are any opportunities that are out there, but by all means to grab them, it would obviously be better to grab the opportunities if you are a collective as opposed if you are an individual, or if you're single farms, you know. So that is how Gugulethu Urban Farming Initiative came about. And it has 4 teams. We've got Gugulethu School Gardens, we've got Gugulethu Community Kitchen Gardens, we've got Market Gardens, and we've got Backyard Gardens. And now when we're saying urban culture, it's a means to be able to cultivate and process and the distribution, obviously, of foods. In this element, or in this case, this is now the actual vegetables, the vegetable produce that comes out of farming. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is how we came about, and that's how Gugulethu Urban Farming Initiative started.
Okay, and then in terms of how far you guys have come, like, have you been to other communities, such as, like, have you been to Khayelitsha or other suburban areas?
Yeah. Okay. Now, we haven't been to other communities simply because other communities, for instance, Philippi, Kailicha, Nyanga, and so forth, from Fuleni and so forth, there were also, there's a higher body that is able to say, look, all of these different communities need to organize themselves. So we wouldn't be able to actually step into Kailicha simply because there should be something similar to Kailicha Urban Farming Initiative, if I may put it like that, or Mfuleni Urban Farming Initiative, but then hence reason why we can't step over. But it doesn't mean that we isolate ourselves, because we obviously have shared problems or common problems, common challenges, common benefits, which we obviously always impart and try to sit and communicate amongst each other, and we share ideas and we share wins, the lows, and all of the challenges that comes with the agricultural space. So we haven't overstepped into any of the boundaries.
Oh, okay. And then how do you encourage youth? How do you encourage young people to actually join in on the organization?
Seeing is that we've linked up with community kitchens, right? To be able to try and say, look, even the community kitchens, they're serving food to the community, right? And in them serving food to the community, we would hope that the community kitchens are self-sustainable in terms of feeding people proper, healthy, well-nutritional value food. So we sought to say, look, let's start the community kitchen gardens for that particular element, to make sure that we tick that box. Well, where that is concerned, we saw there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of youth that will stand in the queues, that is the only way we would actually try to rope them in, to see if we can actually communicate and see how we can impart the knowledge while they're standing in the queues waiting to be served their food, to try to give demonstration as to how to plant, even from a small bag. We put potting soil and all of the inputs and try to put seeds so that they can see from seed up what you can actually obtain, or you can actually have coming from that. So that is the one avenue that we've tried to exercise, and at the moment it's actually coming along well. And then we've also got the school gardens, right? Where the school gardens is concerned, there's also a program where we go out and do demonstrations, and we work the soil together, that is actually specifically located in the schoolyard. And that is obviously now communication with both the headmaster of the school and the anybody that is actually kind of like the caretaker of the school premises, and any teachers that are actually interested in us implementing the EduPlant program, to be able to impart the knowledge as to how to plant, how to cultivate your soil, and how to grow your produce. So that's another element that we've actually but we've already started embarking upon. So that is how we're roping in the youth within the community, and so far it's actually currently working.
Mm-hmm. And then what about university students who are part of this field, who are also part of agriculture? Do you offer some sort of training for them to actually gain some skills when it comes to farming?
You'd be very surprised. Our team or our group is very versatile. You've got different age groups. You've got different genders. For us, there's actually no gender-based responsibility, if I may put it like that. So much as in even imparting the knowledge. There's a lot that we've just recently started a permaculture training course that is introduction to permaculture. A lot of people that are coming from the UCT, from UCT, from CPUT, etc., and others that are not even in the field of actually being in the learning phase or learning. How can I put it? Yeah, but there's a lot of people that have come on board to try to see if they can actually tie in with gaining that kind of knowledge and having an actual manual to go to. If hypothetical example, they've got issues with the pesticides or the organic pesticides versus the actual the chemical pesticides, they've got a go-to manual that can give them insight. And having a network of people or like-minded people, that's also another element that we exercise, which enables them to create the platforms to bounce the ideas, to bounce challenges, to bounce and how to win based on the actual permaculture training module that they have received. And that has also it's been very productive. It has enabled us to actually gain so much that others are even thinking that they need to take this on another level to actually do the actual training, not just given by us, but given by SEED. And recently, we had 3 graduates that came from the SEED group that went for the actual permaculture training course. So definitely, yeah, we are looking into that. We've already started. The first one was in November last year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned that you started the group because of COVID, right?
Yes.
May you please just tell us what has been the biggest challenge, with COVID? Have you been able to distribute everything that you want to distribute or not?
Okay, I'll first start with the biggest fear. The majority, obviously, of the people that encompass Gugulethu Urban Farming Initiative have been in a phase where a lot of hope had been lost, because now if we're closing all doors, closing all schools, closing all old age homes to general public, that imposed a lot of fear in a lot of people. So now, with this particular initiative coming together, making sure that we organize ourselves so much in that we are able to actually start doing something. For instance, your backyards. That is where we actually were able to give and leverage, and because obviously we're now having a challenge where space is an issue. We can't gain access to the currently existing farms within the greater part of Gugulethu. Well, why don't we start with our backyards? Because at the end of the day, we still need, COVID or no COVID, we still need to put food on the table, right? A lot of industries had been closed down because of COVID. People can't go to work, but still there's a need for food, So we started there, and that trail of thought cultivated to make sure that using the current spaces that we have, ideally thinking of the vertical gardening, which you can actually, even if you don't have a backyard space, because in Gugulethu, a lot of houses, they are paved. You don't even have open ground, which is another sore part, because when people had done that, they had no knowledge of the fact that we would be hit by something like the pandemic, that would impose or be a threat to food security. But at the end of the day, you look around the challenges and see how best to position yourself. But if you're a collective, you're then able to actually look into those things, and you get winning solutions to be able to carry on forward. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then how does one actually join in on the organization?
Well, we are currently, if you'd like to join, we need people that are passionate about growing food, people that are seeing or envision the bigger picture, because the main goal of Gugulethu Urban Farming Initiative is to ensure wellness, to make sure livelihoods are secured, and to actually green Gugulethu. If we're saying wellness, the element of wellness, we see that a lot of people die because of cancer, all of these diseases that never used to be and something in the past that had been entrenched within our community, but now it is. So we go back to the drawing board to think, what could be the cause? Maybe the food that we take is not appropriate, based on the pesticides and so forth, and all of the chemicals that are imposed in the food that we eat. Okay, so now let's try to change the narrative. Now, if you want to come on board, you need to be somebody that is open-minded. Even if you've got buying power, you can still go to ShopRite, you can still go to Spar, Pick n Pay, or whatever. But the challenge is to try to shift your mindset and thinking, You don't know how they've grown that food, but now you're coming from a point where you actually know how the food is grown, So in you knowing how the food is grown, you stand a better chance of making sure or ensuring that your own wellness and your family's wellness is 100% secured, because you then eliminate all of the pesticides, all of the chemicals, and all of the Lord knows who or what that gets imposed and infused in the food that we eat. So we want people like that, want people that are willing to learn. When I started, for example, I knew nothing about farming. But my main fear was the fact that I've got little ones. How do I put food on the table if there's lockdown? If we can't go, sometimes there's the hours that are catered for you to go to the shops to go and buy. There's a flock of people. You then constantly also imposing yourself to the threat, because if you're in places where it's clustered, you're also opening that particular gap in order for you to be able to catch the virus. So trying to ensure that we embellish the fact that you need to be of a character that wants to learn, that wants to engage, that's not fearful of getting your hands dirty. So that is why we we want people like that come and enjoy, and join our initiative. You can always give us a shout on 072 652 5358, alternatively 072 458 7179. Those are the two contact numbers that we have. We are on Facebook as well. If you look up Gugulethu Urban Farming Initiative in full, you'll definitely get us. If you go on Instagram for the tech savvy, you can just go Gufi.org, which is GUFIORG, all in small caps. You'll definitely get us. And via email address, we're on Gufi, which is GUFI communications@gmail.com.
All right. And then, as you mentioned right now that you were busy farming, I want to know what has been your biggest project? What has been like the one project where you were like, whoa, that was actually the biggest project?
Sure. Look, we're not working in silos, right? Thank God to your Gugulethu Seaboard Can, that element had been enabled us to open doors that we had never imagined could be open. For example, we've got a VPUU who's currently, that's our biggest project, that has currently come on board to see that they were enthused by the amount of work that we're doing, up to an extent where they said, look, we'll tap into the element where you've got the market garden specifically, and we'll throw in some funds there. So we've got, I think, about 8, if memory serves me correct, if not 10, not community market, it's market gardens, sorry, that we were able to actually make sure that they have boreholes, well points, pack sheds, new materials in terms of your actual your tools, your working tools, your hand tools, even up to an extent where we actually got your potting soil, your manure, your compost, all of the inputs. They had immensely supported us in that element. And they did not stop there. They came back and they also made sure that we look at cultivating again your trail of thought and making sure that you see yourself as a business if you're in the market garden aspect, up until an example where, or up until a point where you would sit down in a workshop for 7 days, 5 days, 7 days, which is called an agri planner, that gives you insight as to I'll make an example. If you have X amount of beds within your space, within your garden, you know exactly how much produce that will come out of that particular space. Companion planting. What are the planting seeds or the correct plants or the correct seeds that you need to plant for that particular season, So it was an immense training course that was also then given to the market garden individuals, that gives you it sets you up in such a way that you not only are able to plant, but you know what to do with your surplus produce. So you're going to be feeding, for instance, your immediate community, but also creating direct links. For instance, there was a seaboard market. There's a direct link in terms of the market to actually make sure that you gain access to people to sell to, and it gives you more insight and more it's more value. It gives you more oomph that this is a working it's working progress, and there's a lot that can be taken into account, and there's obviously room for growth, room for change. That is the biggest project that we've had recently. It's and now when we speak about market gardens, it encompasses a lot of the elderly people that have been in the industry for the longest of time, but they've got nothing to show. That was the sore part as well. But with VPUU linking us with all of the different aspects in terms of the agricultural agri-planner particular program, it has enabled them to actually see and look at things in a different light, and enable them to make sure that going back to the drawing board, going back to planning and how to actually designing their spaces, it is of an added value that says we know exactly how much of produce that we're going to get out when we start planting, for which season, how much produce we're going to come out with, and what specifically, and what is the need that is out there, because it's again pointless to be planting. I'll make an example, morogo, whereas your community eats spinach or cabbage, so you know exactly what to plant, when to plant, why are you planting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, so we spoke about the advantages of actually planting, that you get your own food. But then,
Yes.
may you please just tell me, what are the risks that are there when it comes to growing your own food?
Well, there's minimal risk.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, there's minimal risk, honestly speaking, simply because you know exactly what it is that you're planting. You know what the inputs that you're putting into your ground. You know what goes into making sure that your soil is fertile. For instance, with the market gardens as well, we actually had the soil even tested to make sure that there's no chemical imbalance within the soil that will make your crop to not be of the actual value or the actual standard that you would want, so that you'll be able to go and sell again, or even that is edible to you as well, because there's no chemical or chemicals within your soil. So for me, it's honestly, it's minimal challenge where that one is concerned. I'm more worried about, I don't know what it is that how they got their food from Spa, and how long it's been there, how long it's been contained. There's a lot of other challenges but whereas where you're planting yourself, you know exactly, you know the duration as to how long it's been in the ground, how long it's been out, how long you've got to put into your pot. Nje. It's for me, it's more added benefit if you go that route, as opposed to buying from any shop.
Mm-hmm. And then, how does it play a role, urban agriculture, how does it play a role in the society and also economically?
In the society, it's brought a lot of hope,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that now we're saying you don't have to have X amount of hectare of land in order for you to start. You can just start. You don't have to have ground in your backyard garden. You can start. There's planter boxes, there's planter bags, there's a lot. There's vertical planting, there's just a lot. You just need to start. It's brought back hope, in the sense that now you see that within a short space of time, your spinach is there, your cabbage is there, your beetroot is there, your kale is there, your potatoes, your green peas, your green beans. A vast amount of produce is there for you to actually gain access to. That on its own has brought a lot of hope within our community. And now tying back with the community kitchens, that as well, because when we're saying we're imparting knowledge as to how to, we're not saying that people should be relaxed and enjoy the fact that they're just merely living on handout. No, trying to reshape the trail of thought to be able or enable people to actually make sure that they get back home and start doing for themselves, as opposed to standing in those long queues, waiting and accepting food as handout. So it's we're slowly but surely trying to change the narrative, and in the bigger scheme of things, we are hoping, or that's the biggest goal, is to actually make sure that we green Gugulethu, and people are enthusiastic about it. Because when we come, for instance, today we're out, I'm not even sure what the area is, but it's in Gugulethu. Those new the new houses that are out in Gugulethu that are being built for backyard gardens. We're starting a community kitchen garden there. You can see that the people standing around there's interest, and it doesn't say shy away, don't come. As long as you've got your mask on, as long as you're willing to sanitize your hands, as long as you're willing to observe the COVID protocols, we don't need big groups. We are like about eight people that are here. As long as you know that we are very sensitive in that light, because we still want to live to employ the very same narrative to generations to come. I'm as young as they can. Well, I'm as young as I can feel. I work with, I think the eldest gentleman here is about 65, if I'm correct in that narrative. So we want to work, because if you're working with the elders, there's a lot of knowledge being imparted as to how, because obviously agriculture is something that grows back or dates back as far as our forefathers, because they used to stay out in the Eastern Cape and they used to farm. So we are out here and we are not in that space. We need to change that narrative. Landiti masibuyele nembo. We want to go back to who we are, go back to our roots, because this is what has been done for decades, well in the past. So let's go back to that. Yeah.
Thank you. And then final question. What would you say is the short and long-term goal for the organization?
I think I've mentioned the long-term goal is to definitely green Gugulethu. So we want to see trees, fruit trees, NY1, Steve Biko Drive. We want to see fruit trees. We want to make sure that the dumping sites are no longer, those should be a thing of the past. We want food growing in those dumping sites. We want, obviously, access to land. That is something that's a topic on its own, and we don't want to focus on that particularly, but we want to focus on what we can do currently, because we don't want to see the deterrence and the stumbling blocks, because obviously those are what curbs the appetite of people that want to do. Once you put the challenges, it curbs the appetite of continuously running and moving forward. So the greatest goal is to make sure that we green Gugulethu. If on aerial view, if you can be standing on the sky or in a plane, if you can see shrubs, you can see that, for us will be a definite greatest goal. And then short-term goal is to make sure that we continuously encourage wellness. Now that is making sure that we impart the importance of eating well cultivated food, because what you put into your mouth is what you become. Your ailments come from exactly what you put into so that's the short-term goal, to make sure that we change that trail of thought, that thinking, and making sure that people are inclined and aligned with knowing and the knowledge that if you put whatever it is, like I'm a chocoholic, I know now that sugar is my worst it's killing me softly. It's a silent killer. So I need to shy away from that, because I'll be deceiving the whole purpose if I want to eat organic food, whereas I turn around and I go and delve into your chocolates and so forth, So that's the short-term goal, making sure that livelihoods and wellness are covered. And then long-term is to green Gugulethu.
Thank you very much. This was very lovely. I'm sure our viewers actually learned a lot from Gugulethu Urban Farming Initiative, and I really hope that you guys expand and then encourage not only the youth but other people also to join in on the organization. Thank you very much. This was lovely.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for your time as well. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very guys. So that was it. Gugulethu Urban Farming. I'll see you next week with another topic. Thank you. Bye.
How do we grow this influence of black leaders, men and women, that can represent our industry inside the ANC, inside the policy making structures?
Get to grips with the digital environment, put together best practices, what works and what doesn't, very importantly.
In the project that we're doing in Chaplat, we've created a linking bridge between those two little areas there. So it becomes a matter of just 10 minutes walk from one side to the other.
So my message to our CEOs and those chief investment officers is, where at the end of the day do you want to see your role?
So by treating all of our water back to a stage where we can bring it back into the process, we're in effect saving around about 35% of our water usage on site.